My mother convinced my fiancé to betray me with my brother. He's the more reliable man. You need a real husband, she whispered to her. They thought I would just accept it. I remember the smell of fresh-cut flowers, the kind that filled the air with a promise of new beginnings. That scent, it was everywhere, in every room, every corner of our lives as the wedding day approached. My name is Jake, and at 27, I thought I had my life figured out. Emily, with her radiant smile and infectious laughter, had been my rock through thick and thin. We were about to tie the knot in a quaint ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The week before the wedding, I was swamped with last-minute preparations. The excitement was palpable, yet there was this undercurrent of tension, a feeling I couldn't quite place. Emily and I had planned everything down to the smallest detail, from the floral arrangements to the seating chart. But amidst the chaos of finalizing the menu, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. My family, well, they were a different story. My mother, Margaret, always had a way of making her opinions known, often at the expense of others' feelings. Her words could cut deeper than any knife, especially when it came to Emily. She'd say things like, "Are you sure she's the one, Jake? You could do so much better." It was her way of showing concern, or so she claimed. Then there was Daniel, my brother, the golden child. In my mother's eyes, he could do no wrong. He was the one who always got the praise, the one who was supposed to set the standard. And our father, Richard, he was a quiet man, often overshadowed by Margaret's domineering presence. The day started like any other, with Emily and me going over the final guest list. However, as the day progressed, I noticed Emily seemed distracted, her usual cheerfulness replaced by a distant look. I tried to brush it off as pre-wedding jitters, but when I saw her and Daniel whispering in the corner of our living room, my stomach churned with an uneasy feeling. Later that evening, I decided to confront Emily. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She hesitated, her eyes darting away before she finally said, "Jake, there's something I need to tell you, but not here, not now." The urgency in her voice was palpable, and my heart sank. I could feel the weight of her words pressing down on me, like the heavy silence that followed. Emily's eyes were filled with a mix of guilt and fear, and I knew whatever she had to say was going to change everything. We left the house, walking down the street in silence. The cool evening air did little to calm my racing thoughts. Emily finally stopped under the dim glow of a streetlight, her face shadowed, making it hard to read her expression. "Jake, I've been carrying this burden and it's eating me up inside," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want it to come out like this, especially not now, with our wedding so close." My mind raced through every possible scenario, each one worse than the last. Was she having second thoughts? Was there someone else? The thought of her with Daniel, my own brother, was like a knife twisting in my gut. "I need you to know." The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Emily had asked to meet at a cafe away from our usual haunts. When I arrived, she was already there, her face pale, her hands trembling around her coffee cup. "Jake, I didn't want this to happen," she started, her voice breaking. "Your mother, she told me things about you, about us." Confused, I pressed for more details. Emily took a deep breath. "She said you weren't strong enough, that Daniel was the better choice for me. She convinced me to be with him." The words hit me like a physical blow. My own mother had orchestrated this betrayal, whispering doubts into Emily's mind, pushing her towards my brother. I felt the room spin, the chatter of the cafe fading into a distant hum. "What do you mean? Be with him?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "She said you weren't ready for marriage, that you'd never be the man I needed. She arranged for me to spend time with Daniel to see if there was something there." The betrayal was like a knife twisting deeper. "And was there?" I asked, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I don't know, Jake. It was just a few times, but your mother, she kept pushing, saying it was for the best, that I deserved someone like Daniel. My heart pounded in my chest, the pain of her confession mingling with a rising anger. So, you let her manipulate you into questioning our relationship? Into being with my brother? It wasn't like that, Jake. I was confused, overwhelmed. She made it seem like I was making the wrong choice by staying with you. Emily's voice was a mix of guilt and desperation. The cafe's warmth felt stifling now, the air thick with the weight of her words. And what about us, Emily? What about our plans, our future? I still want that future. I left the cafe in a daze, the world around me blurring. I needed answers, and I needed them from the source. I drove straight to my parents' house where I found Margaret in the garden, pruning roses as if nothing had happened. "Mother," I said, my voice cold, "we need to talk." She turned, her expression one of feigned surprise. "Jake, what's wrong? You look upset." Her tone was too casual, too dismissive. I confronted her about what Emily had revealed. Margaret's face hardened. "I did what was best for her, Jake. You've always been the weaker one. Daniel is the real man in this family." The words hit me like a slap, but I wasn't going to let her off that easily. Best for her? Or best for you, Mother? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been playing God with our lives. Margaret's eyes narrowed, her grip tightening on the shears. "You've never understood the sacrifices I've made for this family. Emily needed guidance and I provided it. Daniel is the future, Jake. He's the one who can give her the life she deserves." I felt my anger boiling over, the betrayal too raw, too fresh. "And what about what I deserve? What about our love? You've manipulated everything, twisted it to fit your narrative. Did you ever stop to think about what Emily wanted, or was it all about your control?" She scoffed, turning back to her roses, snipping a stem with more force than necessary. "Love is not just about feelings, Jake. It's about security, stability. Daniel can offer that. You, with your dreams and your art, you're not the stable choice." The dismissal stung, but I wasn't done. "And what about Emily's choice? Did you give her any real choice, or did you just whisper in her ear until she was too confused to think for herself?" Margaret paused, her hands stilling. "She made her choice, Jake. She chose to explore her options. If she didn't want to be with Daniel, she wouldn't have." I could see the lie, the confrontation escalated. My father, Richard, came out, drawn by the raised voices. "What's all this about?" he asked, his voice weary. I explained everything, watching his face fall with each word. Margaret stood defiant, unapologetic. "I did it for the family's future," she declared, her voice unwavering. In that moment, I realized I was not just losing a fiancé, but a family. "I'm done here," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I'm leaving, and I'm not coming back." I turned away, leaving behind the life I had known, the betrayal echoing in my ears. As I walked away, the weight of the revelations pressed down on me. My mother's manipulation, Emily's confusion, and Daniel's complicity in this twisted game of family politics. Each step felt like a severance from the past, from the dreams I had woven with Emily, from the family I thought I knew. The streetlights flickered as I made my way through the quiet neighborhood, the night air cool against my heated skin. My mind replayed every moment, every whispered doubt Margaret had planted, every secretive glance between Emily and Daniel. It was clear now. The seeds of doubt had been sown long before I noticed the change in Emily. I stopped at the corner, the same streetlight where Emily had confessed her turmoil. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here, under this very light, she had tried to explain her actions, her voice trembling with guilt and fear. "I didn't want to hurt you, Jake," she had said, her eyes avoiding mine. "But your mother, she made me question everything. She said you weren't ready, that Daniel was the better choice." The betrayal was not just in her actions, but in the manipulation that led her there. My mother, with her calculated words, had turned our love into a battlefield, where loyalty and trust were casualties. And Daniel, my own brother, had played his part, perhaps willingly, or perhaps just another pawn in Margaret's grand scheme. I felt a hollow emptiness, the kind that comes from realizing the foundation of your life was built on lies and manipulation. The future I had envisioned, months passed, and I found myself in a new city, starting over. The pain lingered, but with time, it dulled. I began to rebuild, not just my life, but my trust in people. One evening, while sitting in a quiet bar, I met someone new, someone who didn't know my past. We talked, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope. Her name was Sarah, and there was something about her, an openness, a genuine curiosity about life that drew me in. We shared stories, not of our pasts, but of our dreams, our aspirations. It was refreshing, this conversation without the weight of history or expectation. As I walked back to my apartment, I pondered over my past. Was I ever really their son or just an afterthought? Perhaps in leaving, I had found my true self, away from the shadows of my family's expectations. The city was alive with the hum of nightlife, but my thoughts were elsewhere, caught between the memories of betrayal and the faint glimmer of a new beginning. I remembered the look in Emily's eyes, the confusion, the guilt. My mother's manipulation had turned our love into a chess game where I was just a pawn, but now, here, in this new city, I felt a shift. The betrayal, though still a part of me, was no longer the defining narrative of my life. Sarah's laughter echoed in my mind, a sound so different from the silence that had followed me for months. Could I ever truly escape the shadows of my past? Or would they always linger, shaping my future? I stopped at a crosswalk, the city lights casting long shadows on the pavement. It was here, in this moment of solitude, that I realized something profound. The past, with all its pain and deceit, was not a chain but a lesson. It taught me about trust, about the strength it takes to rebuild, and about the kind of person I wanted to be. The light turned green, and I crossed the street, feeling lighter with each step. Maybe, just maybe, I could write a new story. One where I wasn't. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.